Hey friends, this is Dolany TV. Glad to have you aboard here this afternoon as we've, hit the end of the road in terms of stretching out the time to talk about Jake Guentzel. It is about that time. It's Sunday afternoon. It's snowing in southern Alberta, I'll tell you that much, and I am ready to sit back and talk a little bit of Edmonton Oilers with you as we get set up for what should be a fun little exercise. We did this video earlier in the season. That one, I think I got a lot of people like, what the heck are you talking about? Why? What? And now all of a sudden, Jake Guentzel has become the name, similar to Erik Karlsson last season, that just will not go away for the Edmonton Oilers. And what I mean by that is, you look at Erik Karlsson, it started way back in late October, November in 22, and then it just stretched all the way right up to the 23 trade deadline before Erik Karlsson was made known that he would not be moved. This year, it looks like we may have that same Karlsson-Ekholm situation. Jake Guentzel appears to be obviously who the Oilers are highly targeting. It was obviously mentioned throughout the week on Oilers Now and multiple other news outlets saying that the Oilers or Jake Guentzel or the Pittsburgh Penguins have some interest in making a potential move happen. Not necessarily to the Oilers, but in terms of making something happen. Kyle Dubas appears like he might want to do something. So there you have that kind of situation. But for the Oilers, what's interesting is Guentzel's the name that's been here since end of October, start of November. Well, you got this whole all-star speculation that's starting to ramp up a little bit after everything's said and done about Boone Jenner. We've seen that name. I'm not saying anything official, but I've seen that name floated once or twice out there just in the Twitter sphere there when it comes to the Oilers possibly trading. And again, that would be your kind of Matthias Ekholm-like deal based on what Boone Jenner brings. But today we're discussing one other guy, which is Jake Guentzel. So before we get too far, friends, I want you to consider hitting that subscribe button here on Dolany TV if I can pull that up. We're 137 subscribers away from 15,000 strong. Love to have you aboard. Obviously, we got a very interesting finish to the season coming second half officially in terms of how the NHL views the schedule coming up here. The stretch drive, trade deadlines, March 8th. I do not have the day off, but we'll make the best of it. And of course, then we go right into playoffs, friends. So we're aboard for what should be a fun one. And as we get going here, let's discuss Jake Guentzel. But first off, let's talk about one other player as well in Jesse Puljujarvi. So the reason why I'm looking at this Jake Guentzel thing today, especially after this news, is it allows the Penguins a little bit more flexibility. Penguins signed former Edmonton Oiler Jesse Puljujarvi to a 2-year contract. The 2-year contract runs through the end of 24-25 with an $800,000 cap hit. So excellent for Puljujarvi. I struggled through that. Apologies there. But that allows us to take a look at the Penguins' top goal scorers and point getters for the season. And you look here, Jake Guentzel is number 2 behind Crosby, just a point behind. 22 goals, 27 assists for Guentzel. A guy who's a plus 12, playing 21 minutes a night, and obviously shooting 12.7%. So Guentzel having a good go so far this season. Here's what you need to know, and here's what I think is very important, is the Penguins roster outside of those top 5 guys. Can I flash out one more time? 46 games played. Outside of those top 5 guys, the Penguins have 3 or 4 players who have all played the other or played all the games. So the Penguins have struggled with health this year. It's been much to my chagrin when it comes to my fantasy hockey team in terms of Achari, in terms of Rust, in terms of multiple other players. So you look at these guys here, right? Chris Letang, Erik Karlsson, Evgeny Malkin, Jake Guentzel, Sidney Crosby. The Pittsburgh Penguins, in essence, have been healthy enough, but the rest of the other guys have not. So when we talk about Jake Guentzel, as we develop a package here, as we talk about what it could take to trade for one Jake Guentzel, is it's kind of an interesting situation, I think, in terms of he's a $6 million player, so no trade clause in there as well. So you're paying for retention, possibly double retention if you're the Oilers, and a left-hand shot. So if you're paying for just single 50% retention, that's $3 million. Warren Fogle may be able to be going the other way to make that deal happen. Although, as it's been said here over the past 24 hours in terms of talking about a Cody Ceci upgrade, is you have to be very sure that if you're upgrading on a guy like Warren Foegele, Cody Ceci, or Brett Kulak, whoever you're bringing in is a major upgrade, right? Right now, this team's won 16 in a row, and every player on this roster has been good enough to make that happen. Now you have to think, if you're bringing in another guy, you have to be able to be certain that that guy is going to be a big reason why you win the Stanley Cup. Whether it be for a certain situational situation, or whether it be goal scoring, or whether it be whatever that player does, whatever he does at the end of the day to lift that Stanley Cup, you need to be certain that that is why you're grabbing that player, as opposed to grabbing somebody else that's already on your team to step up and get that job done. So $6 million, he's a UFA at the end of the year, is Jake Guentzel. And obviously double retention would cost something. But again, you know, if the Oilers can find a way to even retain an extra 25% after the 50%, that changes everything for the Edmonton Oilers. You're talking about what? Just over $2.25 million cap hit. You move out Warren Foegele, you pay the extra little price for double retention, and you're possibly able to get that extra defenseman or that backup goalie that you may very well want as well. So when it comes to it, I realize trading Warren Foegele is obviously not the preference. I just say because the cap number is kind of similar, the situation in the lineup is kind of similar for Guentzel and Foegele, and obviously too, Guentzel's not necessarily a big body, so you don't want to be going out there and spending all your chips on a guy that's not going to be able to physically impact the game in the playoffs. So that's where I think there would be possibility to do that double retention and find a little extra something. And two, right, this is, like I said, something that we're going to very well talk about all the way towards the trade deadline, 2 days before Ken Holland pulls off a trade, like I said, for somebody like Boone Jenner instead, and all of a sudden the Edmonton Oilers go find a way to go win the Stanley Cup or go on a good playoff run like they have the past 2 years. I guess time remains to be seen, but that's kind of the situation here with Jake Guentzel, right? Again, $6 million cap hit. End of this year's contract expiry. You got to remember here, too, he's the second leading scorer on the Pittsburgh Penguins. And you got to remember as well, they signed Jesse Puljujarvi today. So the Penguins kind of have a situation where they're going to want a price for him. And Warren Foegele's only a little bit of that price because of our part. And then secondarily, too, what else is the roster going to need, or what is the Penguins' plan moving forward with guys like Letang, Crosby, and Malkin aging out of the NHL here over the next little bit? So stay tuned. I mean, again, this is just one of those preliminary update videos where there isn't really much to report, but Guentzel to the Oilers continues to have quote-unquote legs. So we'll see what happens this week as we go along, friends. There's been a lot of activity on the trade wire for the NHL this past week, and we'll see if it continues into the first full week of February. I'm Tyson, this is Dolany TV. Thank you so much for being aboard this afternoon. I will catch you, of course, tomorrow if nothing happens. Later on today, if anything major breaks, I am up on out of here.